Tyler Anderson becomes the first pitcher in Major League Baseball to reach 7 wins for the Dodgers. How will the UCLA Bruins replace Jules Bernard? And Giorgio Chiellini, is it a risk for LAFC or is it potentially clever? Good morning, I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is Faithful Angelenos. It is June 4th, 2022. I'm going to be heading back home after the shift. I can't wait to see my girl. But before we get to that, let's talk a little sports. If you like the content we've been putting out for the last 3 months, clickety-clack the like button. Clickety-clack the subscribe button. There's a notifications bell. Hit that. We try to put new videos out between 9 and 10 a.m. every day. It'll let you know it's there. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And yes, comment, for I am not perfect. Before we get to the main topic, LAFC soccer. Let's go through the scores, the news and notes from around LA. Tyler Anderson has pitched 26 consecutive scoreless innings. The Dodgers hit 3 home runs. They defeat the New York Mets 6-1. Meanwhile, the two teams will face off again today. Walker Buehler going to the mound. He's 6-1 for LA. And David Peterson, 2-0, counters for the Mets. News with the Dodgers. Eddie Alvarez has been called up. He unfortunately has to replace Edwin Rios. They're not certain. There's mixed reports as to what could be wrong with Edwin Rios. Some people say he tore his hamstring. Some people say he strained his hamstring. It's going back and forth. With Alvarez, though, he is interesting. He is a multi-sport Olympic medalist. Yeah, he won a silver medal in speed skating in 2014 and then followed it up with another silver playing baseball in 2020. Interesting guy. Difference maker for the Dodgers? Probably not, but I'm always good for an interesting story. The Lakers officially signed Darvin Ham as their head coach on Friday. Wow, what a secret. Hey, Jules Bernard, we talked about it, right? He was in yesterday. We were mentioning how he's not going back to the Bruins and how this is a pretty big risk for the guy. You know, he wasn't even invited to the NBA draft combine. He's not listed in a lot of mock drafts or any, frankly, that I've seen. But the Bruins have to go upward and onward. If he decides not to, that's on him. So what is Jules Bernard's impact? Well, the Bruins, they don't shoot a lot of threes. They were actually 11th in the conference in terms of three-point attempts. Bernard was their primary three-point shooter. Also, he led the team in rebounds per game. So, who does this fall on? Well, fortunately, the Bruins do have options. They do have a hell of a recruiting class coming in. You're going to see a pretty decent battle between Jalen Clark and incoming freshman Amari Bailey. They're the ones who are going to go after it. See who gets in the starting 5. USC football. Outside linebacker coach Roy Manning really likes what he saw in Corey Freeman in the spring, the former 5-star defensive end. He was a recruit who, honestly, he had a lousy freshman year. But both Manning and defensive coordinator Alex Grinch just raved about his attributes. They were saying he's got a lot of work to do, but no, he could wind up being a difference maker. But note, the guy raving about him is a linebacking coach, not a defensive line coach. And as that is coming out, I still think that Corey Foreman, sometimes I call him Freeman, that he gets switched to the outside linebacker. Position change. There's a headline in a Rams blog. Rams could regret lack of investment in a backup quarterback. Yeah, we know. The LA Kings, there could be some trade chips on the market in the summer. We don't necessarily know what their prospect is for how they're going to improve the team. But having said that, a website called The Hockey Writers listed a bunch of trade chips for the Kings, young players who may or may not have a future in LA. and I combined that with a list from The Athletic. The names that pop up most often: Gabe Velarde, Sean Dursey, and Jordan Spence. Now, I'm not necessarily certain about Velarde because his stock did drop in the last year. He wasn't really relied on a lot. Sean Dursey's stock shot through the roof. But here's the problem for Dursey, who I like. He and Jordan Spence pretty much play the same type of game on defense. And then you think about it, you've got Drew Doughty coming back next year from an injury. Do you need two guys who theoretically would be dropped to the third pairing in defense and they would both play the same type? You wouldn't. But you could use one in trade bait. And Dursey's stock, again, is up. LAFC. Now, soon the transfer windows for European soccer leagues are going to open up. Most of them will open up before July. A name to keep an eye out on: midfielder Jose Cifuentes. He has 9 goals and 12 assists in 64 appearances for the Black and Gold. But he also made a name for himself playing for Ecuador, the Ecuadorian national team, which qualified for the World Cup. But let's get to the main topic. LAFC is apparently this close to signing Giorgio Chiellini, an Italian legend. Nobody knows how close they are to retaining Carlos Vela. We thought it was a done deal, but Chiellini, this close. Now look, I mean, I tell people all the time, I am a Galaxy supporter, but I do want to give LAFC a fair shake. There is a terrific photo of this guy that I saw in his last match that he played for Juventus. He's got this gnarly gash over his right eye, right? Blood is just pouring down his face. And it's the type of pic that if you see that guy, you want that guy playing on your team. It's a tremendous photo. It really is. It's the type of guy you want. So if they do sign him, apparently it's for what they call a TAM deal. I can't make heads or tails of MLS signing policies, but it's not going to be as costly as a DP deal. So LAFC, if this deal is in fact imminent, they're going to get themselves a bargain in a sense. He's a 9-time champion in Serie A and a 3-time Serie A Defender of the Year. But, and I've mentioned this on prior tapes, there are some significant risks. First of all, he's 37. How much does a 37-year-old really have left in the tank? Now, I grant you, you could possibly say the same thing about when the Galaxy signs Zlatan Ibrahimovic, but we'll get to that in a moment. The problem with being 37 and coming over to this year, to this league, MLS may not have the talent level of Serie A, but it is a legit grind. See, I've seen MLS matches in 11 stadiums, from coast to coast, even in Toronto. You're playing on the rain, in the rain, on turf in Portland. You're playing in the smog and the humidity of Houston. A lot of players coming from Europe, in retrospect, say they weren't prepared for it. Steven Gerrard from the LA Galaxy, formerly of Liverpool, he said he wasn't ready for it. He didn't know humidity like that existed, he was telling people. MLS legend Sebastian Giovinco said MLS is good for the supporters and good for the attackers, but because there are more chances to score, it's not the best environment for defenders. So is this really the way how he wants to close out his career? Also, he's got injuries. So is he going to give you the full 90? I kind of doubt it. MLS is also said to be more physical than Serie A. Now, before I get to why this is possibly a clever idea, and it's just a guess why it's clever, I want to give one more knock against the signing by LAFC. LAFC's traditional signings have always been for younger players on the upside. I've mentioned this before. They signed Diego Rossi when he was much younger. He wasn't in Rossi, Vela. They were not in their 30s. Cifuentes, he's in his early 20s. So we're always talking about them going to, say, Central America, South America, unearthing these young players and bringing them up. This is the first time I've ever heard of LAFC going for somebody this old. It's a drastic departure. It is so un-LAFC. Mentioned Zlatan earlier. Hiring a superstar from overseas, that can be the Galaxy's MO. But LAFC? For a defender, when MLS is apparently problematic for quality defensemen. And the other question that I would have is that by my count, LAFC has 5 central backs before signing this guy. Does this limit, the question I originally had for myself was, does this limit Mamadou Fall's development? And that's when it occurred to me. Maybe that's kind of on purpose. Hear me out. I'm not saying Mamadou Fall stinks. I'm not saying he doesn't have a future. I'm not saying he's going to get cut. What I am saying is that when the Galaxy beat LAFC early in the year, Chicharito just kept punking Mamadou Fall. If it was a one-on-one matchup, that would have been a first-round TKO. But instead of putting a teenager on the #1 all-time scorer from the Mexican national team, instead of putting a teenager on that guy, why not put an Italian legend against that guy? Is Giorgio Chiellini a Chicharito stopper? Apparently LAFC fans are just screaming bloody murder every time they lose to the blue, white, and gold. It's just a thought. So would you put him up against the elite scorers of some of the other teams, including Chicharito? Now, if you're a Galaxy fan, an LAFC fan, an MLS fan, you let me know, because this is just a guess, because I'm not sure I approve of the signing. But if this means LAFC finally has a horse that can stop the Galaxy's main striker, is it worth it? You tell me. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode, by all means, like and subscribe to Faithful Angelenos. We're trying to build something here about LA sports. Thank you for watching. I'm James. We'll be back tomorrow. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Corta El Queso production. Have a good day.